the audience. If you haven't noticed, today's headlines go a little something like this. Raw turkey is spreading superbug salmonella. How this health STD can become the next superbug. A dangerous fungal superbug in hospitals worldwide. What everyone is talking about is the emergence of a bacteria that is resistant to antibiotic medications, thus becoming extremely hard to treat. I've been studying microbiology, pathology, and human anatomy for almost a year now at Aguchi Tech, and I've been researching CRISPR-Cas9 and the human gene editing extensively. With this knowledge, I intend to tell you not only why these superbugs are extremely dangerous epidemic, just waiting to strike, but also what I believe we can do to stop it before it is too late. Let's start by going further in depth with the emergence of these superbugs. The issue that we're currently facing is that common diseases are becoming resistant to current antibiotics and are now becoming life-threatening. I'm sure by now you've heard the term superbug at least once and probably quite recently. A superbug is a specific strain of a common bacteria that has become resistant to antibiotics. CNN has stated that in the UK, the STD Mycoplasma genitalium, otherwise MG, is slowly developing into a superbug. The strain has been known to be resistant to 5 different antibiotic types so far. There are 100 antibiotics in the world, but we only actually have 7 different types. Once it becomes resistant to all antibiotics, it can leave up to 4,800 women infertile each year. Without antibiotics, these common diseases that were once so easy to treat are now becoming untreatable. Thousands of people will fall ill, require intense surgeries and procedures, and likely even die. Researchers are trying desperately to find ways to create stronger antibiotics to defeat these superbugs, but what will we do when it is too late and there are new medications that will be discovered? One of the reasons this is happening is that we are so heavily reliant on antibiotics for everything. For a long period of time, doctors would prescribe strong antibiotics for almost anything. If you coughed more than once in someone's direction, they would throw some penicillin at you in the very least. Speaking of which, penicillin is the very first antibiotic to be discovered in the late 1920s. Now, less than a century later, penicillin is almost useless. It has been used time and time again to the point where bacteria are resistant to them entirely. Not to mention, livestock are routinely fed antibiotics every day to make them bulkier and fattened, therefore increasing profit margin for farmers. In fact, according to the FDA, approximately 80% of all antibiotics used in the United States are fed to farm animals. Our bodies and any bacteria that we obtain are so used to the exposure of antibiotics that they have adapted to survive in the medication's presence. With all of this said, I'm going to tell you what I believe can be done to resolve this growing issue. I propose that we use CRISPR-Cas9 technology to improve and change human genetics to be resistant to harmful bacteria diseases. In 1993, CRISPR was developed to treat incurable diseases like measles through genetic editing. So far, it's been tested on animals to give them more favorable genes, like added strength as well as immunity to certain diseases. This exact same technology could be easily applied to human DNA to allow us to become resistant to harmful bacteria. Dr. Liu, an associate professor in biological engineering and researching ways to end superbugs, using a version of CRISPR called CRISPR-Cas9. The idea that CRISPR-Cas9 can simply snip out the bacteria from a person's DNA, replacing a segment with a healthy one, subsequently killing the bacteria. Dr. Liu stated that the technology holds promise when combined with bacteriophages, a type of virus that attacks a bacteria. Together, these bacteria and CRISPR-Cas9 can be engineered to target only the bacteria with drug-resistant genes, ignoring healthy bacteria and non-threatening bugs. Studies have already shown success in using the CRISPR-Cas9 tool on superbugs. Sounds like a perfect solution, right? The current setback is that the FDA has limited human testing opportunities in 2015 due to the lack of information that we have at this time. So far, we can only test animals or human cells and embryos. So long as the embryo is terminated after a certain period, it cannot be carried to term. In Science Weekly's journal, researchers stated that more people, including the general public, need to get involved in discussion before we start editing people's sperm and egg cells. The only thing stopping further research and action is you. Now let's consider this. According to the Wall Street Journal, roughly 700,000 people die each year globally from exposure to various superbugs. Picture the bubonic plague, the Black Death, and the great influenza virus. All these horrific periods of disease and mass death will come again just by different diseases. Maybe not in a year or a decade or even in our lifetime, but our future generations will suffer if we do not make changes now. This right here is actually a chart of deaths from drug-resistant infections. It's been studied that antimicrobial resistant infections are actually killing more people than cancer itself, along with other diseases. Of course, as a general public, there's not really a whole lot we can do personally to stop the incoming epidemic. However, what we can do is open our minds to the possibilities, to give researchers a chance to make a grand scientific breakthrough that is going to save thousands of lives. This may be the only shot we have at saving innocent people from superbugs and incurable diseases. We cannot afford to wait around in the hopes that someone, somewhere, will discover a new antibiotic to stop these superbugs. And even if they do, it's only a matter of time before that bacteria adapts and becomes resistant to that one as well. Talk to your friends and family about CRISPR and do some research on it. The more we know as a society, the less scary it all becomes, and because the fear of the unknown is no longer when the unknown becomes the known. So with all this information in mind, I hope that you will further consider the benefits of CRISPR and try to get more involved with discussing what we can do to advance technology. Superbugs are a disaster waiting to happen. Without action, they could very well wipe out thousands of people over the time span of years. We shouldn't feel afraid of future advancements. We should invite them with open arms before we have no future at all. Thank you.